The yellow post-it appeared on her desk at 11:12 a.m. Yasmin didn't notice it immediately. She was mid-sentence with an angry client whose mother's oncology appointment had been canceled for the third time. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up insurance codes, nodding at nothing because the woman on the other end couldn't see her, deploying the script she'd memorized like breathing. "I completely understand your frustration, Mrs. Palmer. Let me escalate this to our authorization team right now." The post-it sat next to her lukewarm coffee, a bright square of yellow against the institutional gray of her cubicle. When she finally hung up, resolution logged, case closed, NPS score probably tanked, her eyes caught it. Small, neat handwriting. Black ink. No need to explain anything, just happy birthday. Her breath stopped. The fluorescent lights above hummed their eternal monotone. 23 other cubicles stretched in rows around her, headsets murmuring, keyboards clicking, the machinery of healthcare bureaucracy grinding forward. Yasmin stared at the note like it was written in a language she'd forgotten how to read. Birthday. The word felt foreign. She grabbed her phone. January 28th stared back at her from the lock screen. 28 years old today. She'd woken up at 5:47 a.m., seen that date, and her body had frozen for exactly 3 seconds before muscle memory took over. Shower. Braids tied high. Nude lipstick because professionalism is armor. The 6:20 bus. 47 unread messages in the family group chat she hadn't opened. Spotify suggesting Happy by Pharrell, which she'd skipped. She'd forgotten her own birthday. And someone had remembered. Her throat constricted. She picked up the post-it with trembling fingers, flipped it over, as if the back would explain how this was possible. It didn't. Just the faint adhesive strip. The ghost of where it had been stuck. "Girl, you good?" Brenda's voice floated over the cubicle divider. Yasmin crumpled the note in her palm. "Yeah, just, client was rough." But her eyes were already scanning the floor. Past Marcus Chen's glass office where he was stabbing at his tablet. Past the break room with its burnt coffee smell. Toward the hallway where the QA desks lived. Where Ethan Park's workspace sat in the corner, monitor glowing. The man himself, visible through the frosted glass of a conference room, tablet in hand, explaining something to someone she couldn't see. He'd been at her desk. He'd left this. He'd known. The system dashboard blinked, 3 calls waiting in queue. Yasmin's hands hovered over her keyboard. Her heart was doing something it hadn't done in months, maybe years. It was cracking open. And she didn't know if she was about to flood or shatter. If someone saw you when you'd made yourself invisible, even to yourself, would you let them in, or would you run? Subscribe so we can keep writing stories about the courage it takes to be seen. Yasmin's alarm had screamed at 5:47 a.m., and she'd opened her eyes to the ceiling of her studio apartment, white, watermarked from the upstairs neighbor's leak last summer, familiar as her own heartbeat. She'd reached for her phone on autopilot, thumb swiping to silence the noise. January 28th. The date had meant something once. Cake with candles, her mother's banana pudding, her cousin's off-key singing. Then it meant dinner reservations her ex-boyfriend would book and forget, 2 years running, until she stopped mentioning it. Now it meant nothing at all. Just another rotation of the earth. Another reason to get to Medline Health before the 7:30 rush. She'd sat up. Her reflection in the mirror across the room showed a woman who looked functional. Box braids past her shoulders, the same ones she'd had for 6 weeks because the salon cost money, and time she didn't have. Almond-shaped eyes with shadows underneath that concealer couldn't quite hide. She was 28 today. She looked 35. The shower was scalding, the way she liked it. Hot enough to feel real. She dressed in her navy blazer, the one with the loose button she kept meaning to fix, over a white blouse that had seen better days but still looked corporate enough. Small gold hoops in her ears. Nude lipstick, the armor she painted on every morning. Her phone buzzed. The family group chat, 47 unread messages. She scrolled without opening. No happy birthday in the preview text. Just her mother. Yasmin, when are you visiting? It's been 2 months. And a string of memes from her cousin about zodiac signs. She locked the screen. The 6:20 bus was late, which meant she'd be late, which meant Marcus would do his thing where he walked past her desk with the clipboard and made pointed comments about meeting our commitments. She stood at the stop with her coffee, gas station, 2 sugars, the cup already leaking from the seam, and watched Providence wake up under a sky the color of old snow. Spotify was trying. Happy by Pharrell appeared in her daily mix. She skipped it, put on lo-fi beats, the kind with no words, no expectations. Closed her eyes. When had she become this? 6 months ago, she'd ended a 4-year relationship where she'd been a ghost. Trevor had loved the idea of her, supportive girlfriend, quiet, undemanding, but never quite saw her. She'd left because one day she realized she couldn't remember the last time he'd asked how she was and waited for the real answer. She'd thought leaving would feel like freedom. Instead, it felt like static. She picked up double shifts when they were offered. Worked until her eyes burned. Went home to an empty apartment that still smelled like someone else's cologne, even though she'd washed everything twice. She was functional. She was fine. She'd just forgotten her own birthday. Medline's lobby was fluorescent bright and aggressively cheerful. Motivational posters on the walls. Together we heal. Over a stock photo of diverse hands stacked in a circle. The security guard, Jerome, waved her through without looking up. 3rd floor, East Wing, cubicle E47. Her name on a placard. Yasmin Carter, scheduling analyst. Brenda was already there. Giant iced coffee sweating onto her desk, curly hair piled in a bun, pink blouse bright as a flare. "Good morning, Queen?" Yasmin smiled. The real kind was too expensive this early. Morning. Logan, Y. Carter. Password. The same one she'd been meaning to change for 4 months. Dashboard loading. 23 calls in queue. Her headset smelled like the disinfectant wipes they were supposed to use between shifts, but no one did. First call. A man shouting about his mother's canceled appointment. Yasmin apologized, transferred, took notes, logged the case. Her voice was smooth, professional, emptied of everything that might be her. At 9:34 a.m., Marcus appeared. Clipboard, pressed gray suit. Expression like he'd smelled something sour. "Yasmin, you're 4% below resolution target. Let's turn that around today." He didn't wait for an answer. He never did. Yasmin nodded at his back as he walked away. Her chest felt tight, but she clicked to the next call. She didn't see Ethan walk past. Didn't notice the way his eyes caught on her desk. The way he paused for half a second before continuing down the hall. She had no idea that everything was about to crack open. The note sat in her palm like evidence. Yasmin had made it through 2 more calls before she let herself look at it again. She'd smoothed out the crumpled edges, read the words for the 4th time. No need to explain anything. Just, happy birthday. The handwriting was steady, deliberate, black ink, slightly smudged on the wine knees in happy, like he'd written it fast, second-guessed himself, kept going anyway. Ethan Park. It had to be him. She'd seen him walking away when she'd looked up, his gray shirt disappearing around the corner, rolled sleeves showing that minimalist mountain tattoo on his forearm. They'd spoken maybe a dozen times in the 8 months she'd been here. Always work-adjacent, always brief. He was QA, internal tech support. The guy you called when a case wouldn't close or the system glitched. Polite, quiet, observant in a way that should have been unsettling but somehow wasn't. She didn't know him. Not really. So how did he know? Her birthday wasn't in the system. HR kept it locked, and she'd never mentioned it. Not to Brenda, not in the break room, not in the rare forced fun team meetings where Marcus made them do icebreakers. Okay, spill. Brenda's face appeared over the divider, eyes wide with curiosity. You've been staring at that post-it like it's a bomb. What's it say? Yasmin flipped it face down. Nothing. Just a reminder. A reminder that makes you look like you're about to cry or scream. Girl. Brenda vaulted over, not literally, but close, and perched on the edge of Yasmin's desk. She reached for the note. Yasmin pulled it back. It's nothing. Liar. But Brenda's smile was soft. She lowered her voice. You've been running on fumes for months. If someone did something nice, maybe just let them? Yasmin's throat burned. She looked at her screen. 4 calls waiting. I have to work. Brenda studied her for a long moment, then squeezed her shoulder and retreated. Yasmin tried to focus. Call 5. Insurance authorization for a cardiac specialist. Call 6. A woman sobbing because her son's therapy appointments weren't covered. Yasmin walked her through the appeals process, her voice gentle, her hands typing notes she'd typed 1,000 times. At 12:43 p.m., she saw him. Ethan was crossing the floor toward the break room, tablet tucked under one arm, black-rimmed glasses catching the light. He didn't look her way, didn't slow down, just moved through the space like he belonged in it, unhurried, present. Yasmin's pulse kicked. She stood before she could think better of it, logged a break, followed. The break room was empty except for the hum of the vending machine and the ghost of burnt coffee. Ethan was filling a mug from the hot water dispenser, tea bag dangling. Green tea. Unsweetened, if the label was any indication. How did you know? Her voice came out rougher than she meant. He turned, unsurprised, like he'd been waiting. Know what? She held up the post-it. His expression didn't change, but something in his eyes softened. Ethan. How? He set down the mug. You mentioned it. 6 months ago, in passing. You were helping me pull call logs for an audit, and you said something about how January 28th was always the coldest day of the year for you. I remembered. Yasmin's breath caught. She didn't remember saying that, didn't remember him being there. But the cold? Yes. January 28th had always felt glacial, even before she started forgetting it existed. She stopped. What was it? Unsettling? Kind? Impossible? Invasive? Ethan offered. His voice was calm, no defensiveness. I worried about that, but you looked, I don't know, like you'd been holding your breath for a year, and I thought maybe someone should notice. She wanted to be angry, wanted to say it was weird, that he'd overstepped. But the truth was sitting in her chest like a stone. No one else had noticed. Not her mother. Not her cousin. Not the ex who'd known her for 4 years. Why? She whispered. Ethan picked up his mug. Because you're here. That matters. He walked past her, close enough that she smelled his cologne. Cedar, faint. And then he was gone. Yasmin stood alone in the break room, fluorescent lights buzzing, and felt the first crack widen in the armor she'd built around herself. Tucker. The bathroom stall door locked with a metallic click that echoed too loud. Yasmin sat on the closed toilet lid, fully dressed, hands pressed to her face. She wasn't crying. She refused to cry at work. She'd learned that lesson 2 years ago when Trevor had broken up with her over text during her lunch break, and she'd sobbed in this exact stall, mascara running, while someone knocked and asked if she was okay. She wasn't crying now. Her eyes were just wet, and her throat was doing that horrible tight thing, and her lungs felt like they'd forgotten their job. Because you're here. That matters. When was the last time someone had said that to her? Not, you're meeting expectations, or good job on that case, or can you cover the late shift? When had anyone looked at her and decided she mattered just for existing? Her phone buzzed. The screen lit up. A notification from the family group chat. Her mother had sent a voice memo. Yasmin played it. Yasmin, baby, I know you're busy, but you need to visit. Your aunt keeps asking about you, and I don't know what to tell her. Call me. No mention of the date. No happy birthday. Just another demand wrapped in guilt. Yasmin deleted the notification. She pulled up her email. 3 new messages from Marcus. Call resolution still low. See me before EOD. Reminder, metrics review Friday. And a forward of the company's updated attendance policy with her name CC'd. The subtext was clear. You're on thin ice. She'd been on thin ice for months. They all were. Medline had been hemorrhaging staff since the merger last year, and the ones who stayed worked twice as hard for the same pay. Yasmin was good at her job. Top 15% in resolution rates. Near perfect attendance. But Marcus didn't care about good. He cared about exceptional. And exceptional was a moving target. She stood, checked her reflection in the stall's metal panel. Her eyes were red-rimmed but dry. She reapplied her nude lipstick, smoothed her braids, adjusted her blazer. Functional. She looked functional. When she returned to her desk, there was a second cup beside her keyboard. Green tea. Still steaming. No note this time. Brenda was pointedly looking at her screen, grinning like a conspiracy. Did you... Yasmin started. Wasn't me, Brenda said, sing-song. But if I were you, I'd say, thank you. Yasmin picked up the cup. The warmth seeped into her palms. Unsweetened, the label said. Exactly how she drank it when she bothered to drink anything other than gas station coffee. She looked toward Ethan's corner. His desk was empty, but his monitor was on. Screensaver cycling through mountain landscapes. She set the tea down, pulled out a yellow post-it from her drawer, and wrote 4 words. Thank you for seeing me. Then she walked to his desk and stuck it to his monitor. Her hands were shaking. Durbal. The rest of the day blurred into a string of calls that bled together. Authorizations denied, appointments rescheduled, clients who wanted someone to blame and found Yasmin on the other end of the line. She absorbed their anger like a sponge, apologized for systems she couldn't control, and logged cases that would go nowhere. At 4:17 p.m., her screen blinked with a new message. Internal Slack. Ethan Park. Need to validate a case with you. 10 min? Her pulse spiked. She typed back. Conference room B. 5 min. Conference room B was small, frosted glass, usually empty because no one scheduled meetings this late on a Wednesday. Yasmin logged a break, grabbed her notepad for appearances, and walked. Ethan was already inside, door propped open, leaning against the table. He straightened when she entered. Hey. Hey. She closed the door. The frosted glass turned them into blurred shapes to anyone passing by. What case? He tilted his head. There's no case. Her stomach dropped. Then why? Are you okay? The question hit like a fist. She opened her mouth, closed it. I'm fine. Yasmin. His voice was gentle, which made it worse. You forgot your own birthday. She looked at the floor. The carpet was that same institutional gray, worn thin under the table legs. People forget things. Not that. He moved closer, not crowding, just present. Not unless they've been surviving instead of living. Her throat closed. She forced the words out. I'm fine, Ethan. It's been a long 6 months. I'm working through it. By working yourself to dust? What else am I supposed to do? The sharpness in her voice surprised them both. She pressed her palms to her eyes. I wake up. I go to work. I go home. I don't think. I don't feel. I just do. Because if I stop... Her breath hitched. If I stop, I'll realize that I don't know who I am anymore. That I turned into someone who forgets her own birthday because it doesn't make a difference. Silence. Then, it does make a difference. She looked up. Ethan's eyes were steady behind his glasses. Dark brown, serious, kind in a way that terrified her. It doesn't feel like it, she whispered. I know. He leaned back against the table. I know because I've been there. 3 years ago, I was lead developer at a tech startup. 80-hour weeks, sleeping under my desk, convinced I was building something that mattered. I had a panic attack during a pitch meeting and woke up in the ER. Took me a year to remember my own name felt like mine. Yasmin stared. She'd known he'd worked in tech before Medline, but not this. Not the cost. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked. "Because when you become a ghost of yourself, you need someone to remind you that you're still here, still real." He paused. "You did that for me once. You don't remember, but I do." "When?" "My second week here. I was in the break room at midnight, couldn't sleep, came into work because it was the only thing that felt safe. You were on a late shift. You made tea, sat with me, didn't ask questions, just existed next to me until I could breathe again." She didn't remember, but that sounded like something she'd do, back when she still had the capacity to see other people. "Ethan." The door swung open. Marcus stood in the frame, tablet in hand, expression thunderous. "Unauthorized meeting. Both of you, back to your stations." Yasmin's heart stopped. "Marcus, I was just... Now, Miss Carter." She grabbed her notepad, slipped past Marcus without looking at Ethan. Her face burned. Behind her she heard Marcus's voice, low and cutting. "Park, a word." She didn't look back. The email arrived at 8:47 a.m. the next morning. Subject line, "Performance review scheduled." Yasmin's hands went cold. She opened it. The message was short, clinical. "Dear Yasmin Carter, you are scheduled for a performance review meeting this Friday, January 31st, at 2 Solon p.m. with Marcus Chen, Operations Supervisor. Please bring documentation of your recent case resolutions. Regards, HR." Brenda's voice came over the divider. "Did you get..." "Yeah." "Girl." Brenda was at her desk in seconds, reading over her shoulder. Her face went tight. "That's the email." "What email?" "The pre-termination email. 3 people got it last month. 2 of them were gone by the end of the week." Yasmin's vision blurred. She forced herself to breathe. "I'm top 15% in resolution. Doesn't matter. They're cutting bodies, not metrics." Brenda's hand found her shoulder. "I'm sorry." Yasmin stared at the screen. She'd been here 8 months. She was good at this job. Maybe not passionate, maybe not strategic, but good. She showed up. She hit targets. She didn't complain. And it didn't matter, because Marcus had caught her in an unauthorized meeting. 10 minutes. 10 minutes of being human instead of a machine. And now she was on the list. Her chest felt like it was caving in. At 10:32 a.m., Brenda grabbed her arm. "Ethan just went into Marcus's office. The door's closed." Yasmin looked. Through the glass wall, she could see Ethan standing in front of Marcus's desk, hands in his pockets, expression unreadable. Marcus was leaning forward, jabbing a finger at his tablet. Ethan said something. Marcus's face went red. "What's he doing?" Yasmin whispered. "I don't know, but it's not good." The conversation lasted 4 minutes. When Ethan walked out, his jaw was tight. He didn't look at Yasmin, just went straight to his desk, sat down, and stared at his screen. 10 minutes later, Marcus emerged. He stopped at Yasmin's cubicle. "Carter, the Friday meeting has been canceled. System error in the projection algorithm." His voice was flat, professional. "Resume normal duties." He walked away. Yasmin's pulse roared in her ears. She looked at Brenda, who was staring at Marcus's retreating back like she'd seen a ghost. "That never happens," Brenda said. "Those meetings don't get canceled." Yasmin stood, walked to the bathroom, splashed cold water on her face. Her reflection looked haunted. When she returned, Brenda was waiting. "I overheard," she said quietly. Marcus's door wasn't fully closed. Ethan told him the metric drop was his fault, that he'd pulled you into a complex case yesterday and failed to log it. He took full responsibility. Marcus put a formal warning in his file. The world tilted. "He lied for me," Yasmin breathed. "He protected you." "Why?" Brenda gave her a look that said she already knew the answer. Yasmin couldn't focus. Every call was a fog. She apologized to clients on autopilot, transferred cases she should have resolved, and logged notes that barely made sense. Her hands moved, but her mind was stuck on a loop. He took a formal warning for me. He barely knows me. Why would he do that? At 5:47 p.m., the floor started to empty. Brenda packed up her bag, squeezed Yasmin's shoulder. "Don't stay late. You need rest." "I will." She didn't. At 6:13 p.m., most of the lights were dimmed. The cubicles were tombstones in the half-dark. Yasmin sat with her screen glowing, staring at the cursor blinking in an empty case log. Footsteps. She looked up. Ethan was standing at the edge of her cubicle, jacket slung over one arm. "You should go home," he said. "So should you. I was waiting for you to leave first." Her throat tightened. "Why did you do it?" He didn't pretend not to understand. "Because it was true. I did pull you into a conversation, and I didn't log it. The system penalized you for my mistake." "That's not what happened." "Close enough. Ethan." She stood. They were 3 feet apart, the space charged with something she couldn't name. "You took a formal warning. That goes in your file. If they're cutting people, I know the risks. Then why?" "Because you matter." His voice was steady, no hesitation. "And I'm tired of watching this place treat people like they're disposable." She wanted to scream. Wanted to tell him he was an idiot, that corporate martyrdom changed nothing, that he'd just painted a target on his own back. But the words that came out were different. "You don't even know me." His eyes held hers. "Not yet, but I'd like to." The air left her lungs. "I have to go," she said, grabbing her bag, pushing past him. She made it to the elevator before her hands started shaking. The doors closed. She leaned against the wall, heart hammering. Her phone buzzed. A text from a number she didn't have saved. "Saturday. Coffee or cake? You pick the place, I'll buy. No work talk, just us. Ethan." She stared at the screen until the elevator reached the ground floor. She didn't answer. Not yet. But she saved the number. Friday came too fast. Yasmin spent Thursday night staring at her ceiling, replaying Ethan's voice on a loop. "Not yet, but I'd like to." She'd drafted 6 different responses to his text and deleted them all. By 2 a.m., she gave up and put on a finance podcast she'd never actually listened to, letting the monotone voices lull her into something adjacent to sleep. When her alarm screamed at 5:47 a.m., her first thought was, "He has a formal warning because of me." Her second thought, "I don't know how to let someone see me." Work was a gauntlet. Marcus was in rare form, prowling the floor with his clipboard, stopping at desks to deliver micro-corrections. Your tone sounded defensive on that last call. Resolution time is creeping up. Remember, we're a family here, but family has standards. Yasmin kept her head down, hit her targets, stayed invisible. At 11:04 a.m., Brenda leaned over. "Heads up, Sandra Whitmore is here." Yasmin's stomach dropped. Sandra Whitmore, regional manager, only came to the Providence office when something was about to change. And change was never good. She was a ghost in designer suits, the kind of executive who smiled at town halls and signed layoff orders without blinking. Through Marcus's glass wall, Yasmin could see her. Platinum bob, black suit, expression carved from ice. Marcus was nodding, taking notes. Sandra pointed at something on his tablet. He scrolled. "They're making the list," Brenda whispered. "What list?" "The automation list. I heard from Jamie in IT. Corporates rolling out AI for Tier 1 calls. 40% of jobs gone by next year." Brenda's voice was flat. "They're deciding who's adaptable and who's not." Yasmin's pulse roared. She looked at Ethan's desk. He was on a call, facing away, but his shoulders were tense. At 1:37 p.m., Sandra left. Marcus emerged from his office and made a beeline for Ethan. Yasmin couldn't hear the conversation, but she watched Ethan's face change. Surprise, then something guarded. Marcus handed him a folder. Ethan opened it, scanned the contents, and closed it slowly. When Marcus walked away, Ethan sat motionless for a long moment. Then he stood, grabbed his jacket, and left the floor. Brenda's eyes were wide. What was that? I don't know. At 3:12 p.m., Yasmin saw the email. Not sent to her. Ethan's screen was visible from her angle when she walked past to the printer. The subject line: Opportunity, Boston Tech Division. Her heart stopped. She shouldn't have looked. But the preview pane was open, and the first line was burned into her retinas before she could turn away. Congratulations on your offer. We're excited to welcome you to the Boston team. Salary: $127K. Start date negotiable. Please confirm by Monday. Boston: triple his salary. A real tech job, the kind he'd left behind. He was leaving. Yasmin's chest cracked open. She walked back to her desk, logged out, grabbed her bag, and left without a word. Senator. The parking lot was nearly empty when Ethan finally emerged. Yasmin had been sitting in her car for 40 minutes, engine off, staring at nothing. She'd almost left 3 times. But every time she reached for the ignition, that email flashed in her mind. Congratulations. Boston. $127K. Of course he was leaving. Why wouldn't he? Medline was a graveyard for people with real skills. He'd taken a step down to recover from burnout, but he wasn't broken anymore. He didn't need this place. He didn't need her. She saw him walking toward a gray sedan, keys in hand. She got out. Ethan. He turned, surprised. Yasmin, I thought you left. I saw the email. The words came out too fast. On your screen. I wasn't snooping, His expression shifted. Congratulations. Her voice was steady, professional. Boston's a good move. Yasmin, you don't owe me an explanation. We barely know each other. She was backing toward her car. I hope it works out. Wait. He closed the distance between them. Is that what you think? That I'm just leaving? Aren't you? I don't know yet. His voice was raw. Sandra made the offer today. I have until Monday to decide. What's there to decide? It's triple your salary, actual tech work. It's also 80-hour weeks and sleeping under my desk again. His jaw tightened. I've done that life. It nearly killed me. So you'll do this instead? Stay in a call center that's about to automate 40% of its staff? She hated how bitter she sounded. You have an out. Take it. And what about you? The question hit like a slap. What about me? You're on that 40% list, Yasmin. I saw it. Your name was in the expendable column. Her vision blurred. How? Marcus left it on his desk when Sandra called him out. I saw it before he came back. Ethan's hands clenched. You're top 15 in resolution, but you're not strategic. Which means when the cuts come, you're gone. She couldn't breathe. So yeah, he continued, voice rough. I have a choice. I can go to Boston and make 6 figures and pretend I don't know that this system is designed to grind people into dust. Or I can stay and fight. Fight for what? She was yelling now, voice cracking. This job? This place doesn't care about you. I don't... She stopped. You don't what? I don't want you to stay for me. The truth spilled out. I don't want to be the reason you throw away a real future. I've already cost you a formal warning. I'm not worth... Stop. He stepped closer. Don't finish that sentence. It's true. It's not. His voice was fierce. You think you're invisible, Yasmin. You think you don't matter. But you're wrong. You matter to Brenda. You matter to the clients you talk off ledges every day. You matter to me. Her breath hitched. So don't tell me you're not worth it, he said. Because I've spent 3 years learning to recognize what's real and what's just noise. And you, standing here, thinking you have to disappear so everyone else can succeed. You're the realest thing I've found. She was crying. When had she started crying? I don't know how to let someone see me, she whispered. Then let me teach you. The parking lot was silent, except for the distant hum of traffic. Yasmin looked at Ethan, his steady eyes, his hands that weren't reaching for her but weren't pulling away either, the mountain tattoo on his forearm that meant, "I survived." "Saturday," she said finally. "Cake. You pick the place, I'll pick the conversation." His smile was small, real. Deal. She got in her car, drove home, sat on her apartment floor and called her mother back for the first time in 6 weeks. Her mother complained about the lack of contact, didn't ask how she was, and Yasmin hung up halfway through. Then she looked in the mirror, really looked, and made a decision. She would stop accepting crumbs. Not from this system, not from her family, not from herself. On Monday morning, she walked into Medline with her braids down for the first time in months, red lipstick stark against her skin. She went straight to Ethan's desk and left a yellow post-it on his monitor. Stay. The red lipstick was an act of war. Yasmin had bought it 2 years ago on a whim, a tube of defiance she'd never had the courage to wear. It sat in her bathroom drawer beneath expired mascara and old receipts, waiting. On Monday morning, she stood in front of her mirror, braids falling loose past her shoulders, and painted her mouth the color of a challenge. She looked different, older, bolder, like someone who knew her own name. The 6:20 bus was the same. The Medline lobby was the same, but when she walked onto the 3rd floor, heads turned. Brenda almost dropped her coffee. "Okay, who is she?" Yasmin smiled. "Not the corporate one, the real one. Same person, different day. Girl, if you don't tell me what happened in that parking lot." "Later." She logged in, adjusted her headset, and pulled up her queue. 21 calls waiting. But before she started, she walked to Ethan's desk. He wasn't there yet. His monitor was dark, his chair tucked in. She pulled out the post-it she'd written at 5 a.m., smoothed the edges, and stuck it dead center on his screen. Stay. 1 word. No explanation. If he needed more, she'd give it. But this was the truth. She wanted him to stay. Not for her, not as some grand romantic gesture, but because people who saw each other in a world designed to make everyone invisible were worth fighting for. She returned to her desk. First call. A woman whose husband's surgery had been denied. Yasmin walked her through the appeal, her voice steady, her hands sure. She felt present in a way she hadn't in months. At 8:47 a.m., Ethan arrived. She didn't watch him find the note, but she heard the sharp inhale from across the floor, felt the weight of his gaze on her back. When she finally turned, he was standing at his desk, post-it in hand, staring at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. He mouthed, "We need to talk." She nodded. At 9:15 a.m., Brenda's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, frowned, then leaned over. "Yasmin, Sandra's back." "What?" "Building-wide email. Mandatory all-staff meeting at 10. Conference room A." Yasmin's stomach dropped. "That's never good." "No," Brenda agreed. "It's really not." At 9:58 a.m., the 3rd floor emptied into the largest conference room Medline had, a sterile space with long tables, harsh lighting, and a projector screen that currently displayed the company logo. Yasmin sat near the back with Brenda on one side and Ethan on the other. He'd positioned himself there deliberately, his presence a quiet anchor. Sandra walked in at 10:02, Marcus trailing behind her like a shadow. She smiled, the kind that didn't reach her eyes, and launched into her presentation. "Thank you all for gathering on short notice. I'll keep this brief because I know you're busy serving our members." She clicked to the next slide. Innovation Initiative, Medline 2.0. As many of you know, healthcare is evolving rapidly. To stay competitive, we're implementing cutting-edge AI technology to streamline Tier 1 call processes, improve response times, and enhance member satisfaction. Yasmin's chest tightened. Around the room, people shifted uncomfortably. Sandra continued. "This transition will begin in phases over the next 18 months. We're committed to supporting our team through this change. However, We will be restructuring to focus on high-complexity cases, which means not all current positions will transition to the new model. Translation: layoffs. We'll be evaluating each team member's adaptability, strategic value, and long-term fit. More details will come from your direct supervisors in the coming weeks. Sandra's smile widened. But today, I want to emphasize, this is an opportunity. For those who embrace innovation, there's room to grow. For those who don't. She let the silence finish the sentence. The room was a graveyard. Sandra closed her laptop. Any questions? No one spoke. No one ever did. Wonderful. Back to work, everyone. Let's make today count. The room emptied in silence. Yasmin walked back to her desk on autopilot. Her hands were shaking. Brenda's voice was hollow. 40%. What? That's how many jobs they'll cut. I heard it from Jamie last week. They're keeping 60%, and the rest of us... She trailed off. Yasmin looked at her screen. 21 calls in queue. People who needed help, who didn't care about corporate restructuring or AI innovation. They just wanted their appointments scheduled, their claims processed, their lives to be a little less hard. And she was good at that. But good wasn't strategic. At 11:47 a.m., her Slack pinged. Ethan. Roof. Now. She hesitated, then logged a break. The roof was technically off limits, but the door was always propped open for smokers who ignored the rules. Yasmin pushed through and found Ethan leaning against the railing, wind tugging at his hair. Hey, she said. He turned. I'm not taking the Boston job. Her heart stopped. What? I called Sandra this morning. Told her I'm staying. Ethan, that's... She didn't know if she wanted to scream or cry. Why? Because of that. He pointed at the post-it, now folded in his shirt pocket. You asked me to stay, and I realized something. I don't want to run anymore. Not from burnout, not from systems that are broken, not from people who make me want to fight for something real. But the money doesn't matter if I'm miserable. His voice was calm, certain. I've had the high-salary, high-pressure life. It nearly destroyed me. This place isn't perfect, but it's mine. And so are the people in it. Yasmin's throat burned. You're insane. Probably. He smiled. But I'd rather be insane with you than safe without you. She closed the distance between them, her pulse hammering. Ethan Park, if you're doing this for me, I'm doing it for us. He didn't touch her, but his eyes held hers. Because I think we could be something real, if you're willing to try. She was. She was terrified and uncertain, and maybe a little insane too, but she was willing. Saturday, she said. Cake, let's start there. Cake, he agreed. They stood on the roof, wind biting, the city sprawling below them, and for the first time in 6 months, Yasmin felt like she was standing on solid ground. Sandra Whitmore didn't leave. That was the first sign something was wrong. Regional managers didn't linger after all staff meetings. They delivered their corporate gospel and vanished back to Boston or New York or wherever executives lived when they weren't dismantling lives. But Sandra stayed. She set up camp in the executive conference room with Marcus as her lieutenant, and by Tuesday afternoon, the 3rd floor was a minefield of anxiety. She's building the list, Brenda said over lunch. They were in the break room, voices low, while the coffee machine hissed in the background. Marcus has been pulling performance reports all morning. Jamie saw him flagging names in red. Yasmin's appetite vanished. How many names? 40% of the floor. Brenda poked at her salad. That's what, 90 people? 90 people. 90 lives disrupted. 90 sets of bills that wouldn't get paid, families that would fracture, futures that would derail. And Yasmin was one of them. Marcus had made that clear. Top 15% in resolution, but not strategic. What are we supposed to do? She asked. Survive. Brenda's smile was brittle. Same thing we always do. Ethan appeared in the doorway, tension written across his shoulders. "Yasmin, Marcus wants to see you." Her blood went cold. Now. Now. She stood on legs that felt like water. Brenda squeezed her hand. "I'll wait here." Marcus's office smelled like stale coffee and stress. He was standing when Yasmin entered, tablet in hand, expression unreadable. "Close the door." She did. "Sit." She sat. Marcus set the tablet on his desk, screen facing her. It displayed a performance dashboard. Her name at the top, metrics in columns, resolution rate, average handle time, NPS scores. All green. All above target. "You're doing well," Marcus said. Yasmin waited for the other shoe to drop. But well isn't enough anymore. He tapped the screen. "Sandra's looking for people who can adapt, who can handle high-complexity cases, think strategically, be leaders in the new model. I need to know, are you one of those people?" It was a trap. Yasmin could feel it. Say yes, and she'd be volunteering for impossible standards. Say no, and she'd be admitting she was expendable. "I do my job," she said carefully. "I help people. That's what I'm here for." "That's not what I asked." "Then I don't know what you want me to say." Marcus leaned back. "Ethan Park turned down a 6-figure offer to stay here. Do you know why?" Her throat tightened. "You'd have to ask him." "I did. He said this place mattered. The people mattered." Marcus's eyes were sharp. "He also said you were one of the best analysts on this floor, and losing you would be a mistake." Yasmin's pulse roared. "He said that?" "He did. Right before he told me that if Sandra's list includes you, she's evaluating the wrong metrics." Marcus's smile was thin. "He's not wrong, but he's also not in charge. So what happens now?" "Now you prove him right." Marcus slid a folder across the desk. "I'm assigning you to a high-complexity case. Client with a rare condition, multiple denials, escalated to executive review. If you can resolve it, you stay. If you can't..." He didn't finish. He didn't need to. Yasmin took the folder. "When's the deadline?" "Friday. 3 days, 72 hours to save her job." "Understood." She left Marcus's office with the folder clutched to her chest, her mind racing. Ethan was waiting in the hallway. "What did he say?" "He gave me a test case. 3 days to resolve it, or I'm on the list." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Let me help." "You've already helped enough. You took a warning for me. You turned down Boston. I can't keep letting you..." "This isn't about letting me do anything." His voice was firm. "We're in this together. You said yes to Saturday, remember? That means I'm not walking away when things get hard." She wanted to argue, but the truth was, she needed him. Not because she couldn't do this alone, but because she didn't want to anymore. "Okay," she said. Together. They worked through the night, literally. At 11 p.m., the office was empty except for them. The glow of their monitors the only light on the 3rd floor. The case was a nightmare. A woman with a genetic disorder whose treatments kept getting denied due to obscure policy clauses. Yasmin called specialists, dug through medical literature, cross-referenced insurance codes until her eyes burned. Ethan brought green tea at midnight. "You're going to solve this." "What if I don't?" "Then we'll figure out what comes next. But I believe in you." At 2:17 a.m., Yasmin found it, a federal regulation that superseded the insurance policy. The treatment was covered under a rare disease provision that the automated system had missed. She drafted the appeal, cited the statute, and hit submit. Ethan was asleep in his chair, head on his arms. Yasmin covered him with her blazer and sat watching him breathe. This man who'd chosen to stay in a broken system because it had her in it. On Friday, Marcus called her into his office. Sandra was there. "Ms. Carter," Sandra said, "your case resolution was impressive. The client sent a letter of gratitude. Those are rare." Yasmin waited. "You're off the list," Marcus said. "For now." Relief crashed through her. But, Sandra continued, this is a temporary reprieve. The restructure is still happening. Use this time wisely. Yasmin nodded, too exhausted to feel triumphant. That night, Ethan texted, Saturday still on? She replied, yes. And thank you for believing in me. Always. Bad Saturday arrived with snow. The first real storm of the season, fat flakes turning Providence into a postcard. Yasmin stood at her apartment window, coffee in hand, watching the city blur into white. She'd barely slept. Her mind was a loop of the week's events. Sandra's list, Marcus's test, Ethan's steady presence at 2 a.m., the way he'd looked at her like she was worth fighting for. Her phone buzzed. Ethan. Still on for 2 p.m.? There's a place in Federal Hill that makes the best chocolate cake in the state. My treat. She smiled. Typed back. Only if you let me pay for coffee after. Deal. She dressed carefully. Jeans, a soft gray sweater, her gold hoops, red lipstick, because it still felt like armor, but the good kind. She braided her hair loosely, let a few strands frame her face. When she looked in the mirror, she saw someone she recognized. Not the ghost she'd been 6 months ago, but not quite whole yet either. She was becoming. The cafe Ethan chose was small, warm, windows fogged from the cold outside. He was already there when she arrived, seated at a corner table with 2 plates in front of him. Chocolate cake on one, tiramisu on the other. I didn't know which you'd prefer, he said, standing as she approached. So I got both. Her chest tightened in the best way. That's excessive. Maybe, but you've had a hell of a week. Excessive felt appropriate. They sat. The cake was perfect. Rich, dark, not too sweet. Yasmin took a bite and closed her eyes. Good? Ethan asked. Dangerous. I could get used to this. That's the idea. They talked. Really talked. Not about work. Not about Sandra's list or Marcus's tests or the axe hanging over all their heads. Ethan told her about growing up in his mother's Korean diner in Queens, how he'd learned to read people by the exhaustion in their eyes, the way regulars ordered. Yasmin told him about her cousin's terrible karaoke habit, her mother's banana pudding that tasted like childhood, the 4 years she'd spent invisible in a relationship that had taught her to expect crumbs. I'm trying not to do that anymore, she said quietly. Expect crumbs. Good. You deserve the whole meal. She laughed, surprising herself. That was incredibly cheesy. I know, but I meant it. The snow fell heavier outside. Other patrons came and went, but Yasmin barely noticed. She was here, present, real. Ethan's eyes never left her face, not in a way that felt invasive, but witnessed. Like he was memorizing her. Can I ask you something? She said. Anything. Why me? You could have stayed quiet. Kept your head down, taken the Boston job, moved on. Why risk all that for someone you barely know? Ethan was quiet for a long moment. Then, do you remember 3 months ago? November. You were on a late shift, and I was in the break room at midnight. I told you about that. You said I sat with you, made tea. You did, but there's more. He traced the rim of his coffee cup. I'd been having panic attacks again. Small ones, manageable, but they were coming back. I thought maybe I'd made a mistake, coming back to a corporate job. That I was broken in some fundamental way. And then you walked in. Yasmin held her breath. You didn't ask what I was doing there. Didn't try to fix me. You just made 2 cups of tea, sat across from me, and talked about nothing. The weather. A client who'd called you blessed. Your favorite lo-fi playlist. After 20 minutes, I could breathe again. When you left, you said, "See you Monday." Like it was a given. Like I'd still be there. His voice roughened. That was the first time in a year I believed I would be. So when I saw you forget your own birthday, saw you disappearing the way I had, I thought, maybe I could be that for you. The person who sits across from you, and reminds you that Monday's coming, and you're going to be there, and that matters. Tears pricked Yasmin's eyes. I don't remember that night. I know. You were in survival mode, but I do, and I'm grateful for it. She reached across the table, took his hand. His fingers curled around hers, warm and solid. Thank you, she whispered, for seeing me. Thank you for letting me. They stayed until the cafe closed, then walked through Federal Hill in the snow, their breath fogging, shoulders bumping. Ethan walked her to her car. This was, Yasmin started. A good start. She smiled. Yeah, a really good start. He stepped closer. Can I see you again? Not at work, just us. I'd like that. He didn't kiss her. But the way he looked at her felt like a promise. She drove home with heat in her chest, something bright and terrifying and real unfurling inside her. Monday morning felt different. Yasmin walked into Medline with her head high, braids down, red lipstick in place. She'd survived Sandra's test. She was off the list, for now. But more than that, she'd survived something bigger, the belief that she didn't matter, that she was disposable. That being seen was a weakness instead of an act of rebellion. Brenda whistled when she saw her. Okay, who is this woman and what did she do with my cubicle mate? Same woman, just awake now. Girl, if this is what Cake with Ethan does, you need to schedule weekly appointments. Yasmin laughed. Maybe I will. The morning passed in a rhythm she recognized but no longer resented. Calls came in, people scared, frustrated, lost in a system designed to confuse them. Yasmin guided them through. It wasn't glamorous, but it was real. She was helping. That counted. At 10:47 a.m., Marcus appeared at her desk. Carter, conference room B. Now. Her stomach dropped. Is something wrong? Just come. She followed him, heart hammering. Inside the small room, Sandra Whitmore sat at the head of the table, laptop open, expression unreadable. Miss Carter, sit. Yasmin sat. Sandra folded her hands. Your resolution of the Jennings case was exceptional. The client's letter specifically mentioned your persistence and compassion. Those qualities are exactly what we need in the new structure. Yasmin's pulse slowed fractionally. Thank you. However, Sandra continued, I need to be transparent with you. The restructure will eliminate most Tier 1 positions. We're looking for analysts who can handle high-complexity cases, mentor others, and lead process improvements. That's a significant step up in responsibility. Are you interested? It was a lifeline. A chance to be strategic, not expendable. But the catch was there, hovering unspoken. Prove you're worth keeping, constantly, forever. What would that look like? Yasmin asked. Increased caseload complexity, mentorship of junior staff, potential supervisory track. Sandra's eyes were sharp. It also means longer hours, higher pressure, and scrutiny. Not everyone can handle it. Translation. You'll work yourself to dust, or we'll find someone who will. Yasmin thought of the last 6 months. The double shifts, the survival mode, the morning she'd forgotten her own birthday because she'd become a machine. Can I think about it? She asked. Sandra's eyebrow lifted. Most people say yes immediately. I'm not most people. A flicker of something, respect maybe, crossed Sandra's face. You have until Wednesday. But understand, if you decline, you're back on the evaluation list. There's no middle ground. Understood. Yasmin left the room feeling like she'd been offered a gilded cage. Marcus caught her in the hallway. Take the offer, he said quietly. It's your best chance. Or what? Or you're gone by March. She walked back to her desk, logged in, pulled up her queue. 12 calls waiting. People who needed her. At lunch, she found Ethan on the roof. They offered me a promotion, she said without preamble. He looked up from his tablet. That's good? I don't know. She joined him at the railing. It's a chance to stay. But it's also more hours, more pressure, more proof that I'm worth keeping. And if I say no, I'm on the list again. What do you want to do? I don't know. 6 months ago, I would have said yes without thinking. Anything to survive. But now... She trailed off. Now I'm not sure survival is enough. Ethan was quiet. Then, do you know why I turned down Boston? You said you didn't want to run anymore. That's part of it. But the real reason? I realized that the life I was running toward was just another cage. Bigger, shinier, better paying. But still a cage. He turned to face her. I don't want to spend my life proving I'm worth keeping. I want to build something where worth isn't a moving target. How do you do that here? Maybe I don't. Maybe we don't. His voice was steady. But I'd rather try to change the system with people I care about than succeed in one that treats us like numbers. Yasmin's chest ached. That's terrifying. Yeah, but so is disappearing. She looked at the city sprawling below. Gray buildings, frozen river, people moving through their lives with invisible weight. She thought of the clients she'd helped, the ones who called her blessed, who said her voice was the first kind thing they'd heard all day. She thought of Brenda, fighting to finish night school so she could leave. Of Ethan, choosing presence over escape. Of herself, standing on this roof in red lipstick, refusing to be a ghost. I'm going to say no, she said. Ethan's eyes widened. To the promotion? To the cage. I'll tell Sandra I want to stay in my current role. And if that means I'm on the list, then I'm on the list. But I'm done proving my worth to people who can't see it. Yasmin, I know it's risky. I know I might lose my job. But I survived the last 6 months by disappearing, and I can't do that anymore. She looked at him. You taught me that. Being seen is worth the risk. He smiled, slow, real, proud. You're incredible. I'm terrified. That too. On Wednesday, Yasmin walked into Sandra's temporary office and declined the promotion. Sandra's face went cold. You understand what this means. I do. Then we're done here. Yasmin left feeling lighter than she had in months. Decum 1. The fallout was immediate. By Thursday, Marcus's attitude had shifted from grudgingly respectful to openly hostile. He reassigned Yasmin's high-complexity cases to other analysts, loaded her queue with back-to-back Tier 1 calls, and started flagging every metric that dipped even fractionally below perfect. Brenda noticed. He's building a paper trail, documenting reasons to let you go. I know. Girl, why did you say no? You had a way out. Because it wasn't a way out. It was just a prettier cage. Yasmin adjusted her headset. I'm tired of cages. Brenda stared at her like she'd grown a second head. You're either the bravest person I know or the most reckless. Probably both. By Friday, the tension was suffocating. Marcus called Yasmin into his office twice to discuss performance concerns, metrics that were fine but not perfect, tone on calls that was too empathetic, and slowed resolution times. It was death by 1,000 cuts. At 4:32 p.m., Ethan appeared at her desk. His face was pale. We need to talk. They went to the roof. The snow had melted, leaving the city slick and gray. Sandra called me in this morning, Ethan said without preamble. She asked if I'd reconsidered Boston. Yasmin's heart stopped. What did you say? I said no. Again. But she didn't accept it this time. His jaw clenched. She said if I'm determined to stay in operational support, she needs to see strategic value. Which means I'm being reassigned. To what? Quality audits, monitoring calls, evaluating performance. He looked sick. I'd be reporting directly to Sandra, flagging people for termination. Yasmin's world tilted. You'd be the one making the list. Yeah. When do you start? Monday, if I accept. And if you don't? Then I'm let go for refusal to fulfill assigned duties. His voice was hollow. She has me either way. I take the job and become part of the system that grinds people down, or I leave and lose everything I stayed for. Yasmin wanted to scream. This was Sandra's play. Identify the people who resisted, then force them to become enforcers or casualties. Divide and conquer. What are you going to do? She asked. I don't know. He turned to her, eyes raw. If I take it, I survive. But I become someone I hate. If I don't, I'm gone, and I can't protect you or Brenda or anyone else. You were never supposed to protect us, Ethan. That's not your job. Then what is? To be human. To resist. She stepped closer. You told me that being seen is worth the risk. That you'd rather fight the system with people you care about than succeed in one that treats us like numbers. Did you mean that? Yes. But then don't take the job. Her voice was fierce. Don't become the thing you hate just to survive. We'll figure it out. Together. Yasmin, if I refuse, I'm gone by next week, and without me here, who's going to push back when Marcus goes after you? I will. She took his hands. I spent 6 months disappearing because I thought that's what survival looked like. You taught me it doesn't have to. So now I'm teaching you. We don't survive by becoming them. We survive by staying us. Ethan's eyes shone. I could lose everything. So could I. But we'll lose it as ourselves, not as ghosts. He pulled her into a hug. Sudden, tight, desperate. She held on, feeling his heartbeat against hers, two people choosing the hard path because the easy one cost too much. When they pulled apart, his decision was written on his face. I'm saying no, he said. Good. That night, Yasmin got a text from Brenda. Emergency. Call me. She called. They're moving the timeline, Brenda said, voice shaking. Jamie just told me. Sandra's cutting 40% by end of February, not next year. That's 4 weeks, Yasmin. 4 weeks and 90 people are gone. Yasmin closed her eyes. The cage was closing faster than any of them had realized. What do we do? Brenda whispered. We fight, Yasmin said. Or we go down swinging. The call came at 11:07 p.m. on a Sunday. Yasmin was in her apartment, half asleep on the couch with a finance podcast droning in her ears, when her phone lit up. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Hello? Ms. Carter? This is Dr. Raymond Jennings. Her brain stuttered. Jennings. The high-complexity case she'd resolved. The one that had saved her from Sandra's list. Dr. Jennings. Is everything okay? Is your wife... She's fine. Better than fine, actually. The treatment's working. We got the results back yesterday. His voice was thick. I'm calling because I need to tell you something. You saved her life. Yasmin's throat closed. I just did my job. No, you didn't. You went beyond every script, every policy, every reasonable expectation. You called specialists. You researched federal regulations. You fought for someone you'd never met because it was the right thing to do. He paused. My wife is alive because you refused to accept no. I needed you to know that. Tears slid down Yasmin's cheeks. I'm so glad she's okay. We are too. But there's another reason I'm calling. I'm on the board of directors for Rhode Island Health Advocates, a nonprofit that helps people navigate insurance systems. We've been looking for someone to lead our patient advocacy program. The pay isn't corporate level, but it's steady. And the work, it's what you did for us. Every day. Yasmin sat up. Are you offering me a job? I'm offering you a conversation. If you're interested. I know you're currently employed, and I don't want to poach. But if you ever find yourself looking for a way out of that system, we'd be honored to have you. He gave her his email address. Told her to think about it. Hung up. Yasmin sat in the dark, phone in her lap, mind racing. A way out. Not a cage, but a door. She texted Ethan. Are you awake? Yeah, can't sleep. You? Can I call you? Her phone rang immediately. She told him everything. Dr. Jennings, the offer, the nonprofit. Ethan listened without interrupting. "What are you going to do?" he asked when she finished. "I don't know. It's not corporate money. It's probably longer hours for less pay. But it's real work. Work that matters." "Sounds like you've already decided." "Have I?" "Yeah." His voice was soft. "You're just scared to believe you deserve it." She was. She absolutely was. "What about you?" she asked. "Sandra's deadline is tomorrow. Have you decided about the audit job?" "I'm saying no, which means I'm out by Friday." "Ethan." "I know. But I called my old startup buddy yesterday. He's at a mid-sized tech company in Providence, fully remote, decent pay. They need a QA lead. He's putting my name in." Hope flared in Yasmin's chest. "You'd have a landing spot." "Maybe, no guarantees. But even if it doesn't work out, I'll be okay. I've survived worse." "We both have." They talked until 1 a.m., about fear and risk and the difference between surviving and living. When they finally hung up, Yasmin felt something she hadn't felt in months: certainty. On Monday morning, she emailed Dr. Jennings. "I'm interested. Let's talk." On Tuesday, Ethan submitted his refusal to Sandra. His last day was set for Friday, February 7th. On Wednesday, Yasmin met with Dr. Jennings at a coffee shop downtown. He offered her the position. Rhode Island Health Advocates, Patient Advocacy Lead, $58K salary, full benefits, start date March 1st. She accepted. On Thursday, she submitted her 2-week notice to Marcus. His face went purple. "You're quitting?" "I'm choosing myself." "You'll regret this. That nonprofit will fold in a year, and you'll be back here begging for your job." "If that happens, I'll survive. But I won't be back here." She walked out of his office with her head high. Brenda tackled her in the hallway. "You did it! Oh my God, you did it!" "We did it." Yasmin squeezed her back. "Your turn's coming. Finish that degree and get out." "I will. I swear I will." That night, Yasmin and Ethan met at the cafe where they'd had cake. This time, she ordered tiramisu. He ordered coffee. "To new beginnings," he said, lifting his cup. "To being seen," she countered. They toasted. Yasmin's last day at Medline was February 14th, Valentine's Day. The irony wasn't lost on her. She arrived at 7:15 a.m., earlier than necessary, and sat at her desk for a quiet moment. Cubicle E47. She'd spent 8 months here, some of the hardest months of her life. She'd forgotten her birthday in this chair. She'd cried in the bathroom down the hall. She'd received a yellow post-it that had cracked her open and started her healing. She packed her few personal items: a photo of her and her cousin, a spare blazer, the mug Brenda had given her that said, "Survived another meeting that should have been an email." She left the corporate-issued headset on the desk, its coiled cord like a shed skin. At 9:00 a.m., the team gathered in the break room. Marcus had authorized 15 minutes for a farewell, a calculated gesture that cost him nothing. Someone had brought grocery store cupcakes. Brenda made a speech that was half comedy, half eulogy. "Yasmin Carter is the person who made this place bearable," Brenda said, voice cracking. "She listened to people scream at her for 8 hours and still found the energy to ask how I was doing. She's proof that corporate systems don't get to define our worth. We do. So let's all be a little more like Yas, okay?" People clapped. A few hugged her. Marcus stood in the corner, arms crossed, expression unreadable. At 11:47 a.m., Yasmin logged out for the last time. She stood, adjusted her bag on her shoulder, and walked toward the elevator. Ethan was waiting there. He'd finished his last day the week before, but he'd come back for hers. He was in jeans and a sweater. No corporate costume, just himself. "Ready?" he asked. "Yeah." They walked out together, through the fluorescent lobby with its motivational posters, past Jerome the security guard who actually looked up and said, "Good luck out there," into the cold February air. "How does it feel?" Ethan asked. "Terrifying, freeing, both." "Yeah, that sounds right." They stopped at her car. Yasmin looked back at the Medline building, gray, institutional, unchanged. But she was different. She'd walked in 8 months ago as a ghost. She was leaving as a person. "Thank you," she said to Ethan, "for the post-it, for all of it. You did the hard part. I just reminded you that you could." She kissed him. Right there in the parking lot, in broad daylight, in front of anyone who might be watching. His hands found her waist, hers tangled in his hair. When they broke apart, they were both smiling. "What now?" he asked. "Now we live." March arrived with thawing snow and hesitant sun. Yasmin started her job at Rhode Island Health Advocates on March 1st, a Monday that felt nothing like the Mondays at Medline. The office was small, cluttered with files and passion, staffed by people who'd chosen purpose over paychecks. Dr. Jennings introduced her to the team with genuine pride. Her desk had a window. She could see the sky. The work was hard. Clients came to them when every other door had closed, denied claims, dropped coverage, medical debt that would take lifetimes to repay. Yasmin fought insurance companies with the same ferocity she'd once used to meet their quotas. But this time, she wasn't protecting metrics. She was protecting people. And it mattered. She could feel it. Ethan had landed the QA lead position at the mid-sized tech company. Remote work, reasonable hours. A team that valued his insight instead of just his output. He was rebuilding the parts of himself that burnout had hollowed out. Slowly, carefully, with Yasmin beside him. They fell into a rhythm. Saturday mornings at the Federal Hill Cafe, splitting tiramisu and talking about everything and nothing. Weeknight dinners at his apartment or hers, cooking meals that were edible if not impressive. Quiet evenings where they existed in the same space, working on separate things but together. One night in late March, Yasmin traced the mountain tattoo on his forearm. "Tell me about this," she said. They were on his couch, her legs tucked under her, his arm around her shoulders. Rain pattered against the windows. "I got it 2 years ago," he said. "After the burnout. I'd spent 6 months in therapy, trying to figure out who I was without the startup, without the 80-hour weeks. I felt erased. Like I'd been defined by productivity for so long that when I stopped, there was nothing left." Yasmin knew that feeling intimately. "My therapist suggested I do something physical," he continued. "Reclaim my body as mine, not just a machine for work. So I went hiking. White Mountains, New Hampshire. Climbed Mount Washington in October. Terrible idea, by the way. It was freezing. But when I got to the top..." He paused, searching for words. "I realized I was still here. Still real. The mountain didn't care about my productivity. It just existed, and I existed next to it. And that was enough." He looked at the ink. "I got this to remember. I survived. And survival is worth documenting." Yasmin kissed his shoulder, right over the mountain. "I'm glad you survived." "Me too. Otherwise I wouldn't have met you. You met me when I was a ghost. I met you when you were becoming. There's a difference." She settled against him, feeling his heartbeat, steady and sure. Outside, the rain turned the city soft. Inside, she was warm. "I think I'm happy," she said, surprised by the words. "You think?" "I'm not used to it. It feels fragile. Like if I acknowledge it, it'll disappear." "It won't. Not if we protect it." "How do we do that?" "By choosing it, every day. Even when it's hard." Yasmin thought about that. About the choice to leave Medline, to take less money for more meaning, to let Ethan see her even when she was scared. Every choice had been terrifying. Every choice had been right. "Okay," she said. "I'm choosing it." "Me too." They stayed like that until the rain stopped. Two people who'd forgotten how to be human, learning to remember together. April arrived with morning light that felt like a promise. Yasmin woke to the sound of rain against the window. Not the harsh winter kind, but the soft spring version that turned Providence green. She reached for her phone. April 28th. 3 months since the yellow post-it. 3 months since she'd walked out of Medline and into a life that actually felt like hers. Her alarm wasn't set. She didn't need it anymore. Her commute to Rhode Island Health Advocates was 20 minutes instead of an hour, and her start time was flexible. She could wake up like a person instead of a machine. Ethan was already up, probably in the kitchen of the apartment they'd moved into together last month. She could smell coffee, hear him humming something off-key. She grabbed her robe, soft, gray, a gift from Brenda, and patted out. Ethan was at the counter, spatula in hand, making what looked like semi-successful scrambled eggs. "Morning," he said, turning with a smile that still made her chest warm. "I'm attempting breakfast." Emphasis on attempting. I can see that. She wrapped her arms around his waist from behind, pressed her face to his back. "But I appreciate the effort. How'd you sleep?" "Better than I have in years." It was true. The nightmares about missed calls and angry clients had faded. She still dreamed about work sometimes, but now it was about the clients she'd helped, the ones who sent thank you cards, who called her a lifesaver, who reminded her why this work mattered. They ate breakfast together, slightly burned eggs and perfectly toasted bread, while rain pattered against the windows. Ethan told her about a bug his team was trying to fix. Yasmin told him about a case she'd won yesterday. A woman with lupus who'd been denied treatment for 2 years finally got approved. "You're really good at this," Ethan said, studying her face. "At what?" "Being present. Being you." He reached across the table, took her hand. 3 months ago, you were a ghost. Now you're so alive it's almost blinding." Her throat tightened. "You helped with that. We helped each other." At 9 a.m., Yasmin headed to work. The Rhode Island Health Advocates office was small, cluttered with files and passion, staffed by people who'd chosen purpose over paychecks. Her desk had a window. She could see trees budding with new leaves. Dr. Jennings stopped by mid-morning. "Yasmin, I want to run something by you. We're getting funding for a new program, training advocates to work directly in hospitals. You'd be leading the training team. Interested?" Her heart kicked. Very interested. "Good. Let's talk details next week." At lunch, she called Brenda. "Hey, Queen." Brenda's voice was bright. "How's the nonprofit life treating you?" "Really good. They just offered me a promotion. I'd be leading a training program." "Yasmin! That's amazing!" Brenda's shriek made her pull the phone from her ear. "See? I told you leaving was the right move. How's Medline?" "A dumpster fire, as predicted. They've cut 42 people so far. The AI system keeps glitching and denying everything. Clients are furious, staff is miserable, and Marcus looks like he aged 10 years. Brenda's laugh was bitter. "But I'm almost out. I graduate in 3 weeks. Already have 2 job offers, both in marketing, both way better than this hellhole." Pride swelled in Yasmin's chest. "I'm so proud of you. Learned from the best. You showed me it was possible to choose yourself. Now I'm doing it too." After work, Yasmin met Ethan at their cafe in Federal Hill. The same corner table, the same ritual they'd built over 3 months of Saturdays and random weekday evenings when they both needed something sweet. "What are you thinking?" Ethan asked, watching her over his coffee cup. Yasmin considered. The rain had stopped, leaving the windows clear. Outside, people moved through their lives, some rushing, some strolling, all navigating their own invisible battles. "I'm thinking that 3 months ago I was invisible," she said. "Even to myself. I'd forgotten I was a person. I was just functioning, surviving. And now? Now I'm here, really here. I have work that matters. I have Brenda about to start her dream career. I have this..." She gestured between them. "Us. A life that's mine, not just something I'm enduring." Ethan's eyes shone. "You know what I'm thinking?" "What?" "That the bravest thing you ever did wasn't leaving Medline or taking the nonprofit job. It was letting me see you, letting yourself be seen. That's harder than any corporate cage." You made it easier. We made it easier, together. They finished their coffee slowly, watching the city transform under post-rain light. When they left, the air smelled like wet pavement and new growth, that specific spring scent that promised things could change, could grow, could become something better. Walking home, their hands linked, Yasmin thought about time. 3 months ago, she'd been drowning. 6 months ago, she'd forgotten her own birthday. And in 9 months, she'd wake up to another January 28th. But this time, she'd remember. This time, she'd celebrate. Because she'd learned something in these 3 months. Existing wasn't just survival. It was resistance. It was choosing to be seen in a world designed to make people invisible. It was yellow Post-its and shared cake, and the courage to say, "I matter," when the system insisted otherwise. "Same time next week?" Ethan asked as they reached their building. "Same time next week," she agreed. "And the week after, and the week after that. Sounds like a plan." They climbed the stairs to their apartment, 2 people who'd survived by becoming visible, by refusing to disappear, by choosing each other and themselves in a world that demanded they choose survival over life. Yasmin Carter was building a life worth living, and she knew, bone deep and certain, that she would never forget herself again. Because she mattered. Because she was seen. Because love, real, reciprocal, chosen love, was the most dangerous act of resistance in a system built to make people invisible, and she was done disappearing. January 28th, 2027. Yasmin's alarm went off at 6:45 a.m. She reached for her phone, thumb swiping to silence it. The date stared back at her. January 28th. Her birthday. 29 years old today. She remembered. She sat up slowly, letting the weight of that settle. 1 year ago, she'd woken to the same date and frozen, 3 seconds of paralysis before survival mode kicked in. She'd forgotten because forgetting was easier than acknowledging how small she'd become. This year, she smiled. Her phone buzzed. Ethan, texting from his side of the bed. "Happy birthday. I love you. Also, I made breakfast. Also, I might have burned the eggs. Details pending." She laughed, rolled over. He was already up, probably in the kitchen of the apartment they'd moved into together last October. She could smell coffee, hear him muttering at the stove. She grabbed her robe and patted out. Ethan was at the counter, spatula in hand, looking sheepish next to a pan of definitely burned scrambled eggs. "I tried," he said. "I see that. In my defense, I was distracted by the cake." He pointed. On the table sat a small chocolate cake with a single candle, the kind from the Federal Hill Cafe they loved. Yasmin's throat closed. "You got our cake. It's your birthday. Cake is non-negotiable." She crossed to him, wrapped her arms around his waist, pressed her face to his chest. He held her, one hand tangled in her braids, the other still gripping the spatula. "Thank you," she whispered, "for remembering. For always remembering. You're easy to remember." They ate burned eggs and perfect cake for breakfast. Yasmin opened presents. A new blazer from her mother, who'd actually called yesterday to say happy birthday a day early, a small miracle. A care package from Brenda full of inside jokes and face masks. And from Ethan, a framed photo of them on the roof at Medline, the day they'd both decided to jump. "I didn't know you took this," she said, studying the image. They looked terrified and determined, standing against the railing with the city behind them. "Brenda took it. I asked her to. I wanted proof that we chose the hard thing. That we didn't run." Yasmin set the frame on the bookshelf, next to the yellow Post-it she'd kept from that first day, the one that had started everything. Work called to say happy birthday. Dr. Jennings gave her the afternoon off. Brenda sent a voice memo that was 90% screaming and 10%, "I'm so proud of you." Yasmin's cousin sent a meme about getting old. At 2 p.m., Ethan took her back to the Federal Hill Cafe. They sat at their corner table, splitting tiramisu and chocolate cake because why choose? "What are you thinking?" Ethan asked. Yasmin considered. I'm thinking that a year ago I was invisible, even to myself. I'd forgotten I had a birthday because I'd forgotten I was a person. I was just functioning, surviving. And now? Now I'm here. Really here. I have work that matters. I have Brenda crushing it at her marketing job and texting me memes. I have a mother who's trying, even if she doesn't always get it right. I have you. She reached across the table, took his hand. I have a life. Not a perfect one, but mine. That's everything. Ethan's eyes shone. You know what I'm thinking? What? That the bravest thing you ever did wasn't leaving Medline or taking the nonprofit job. It was letting me see you, letting yourself be seen. That's harder than any corporate cage. You made it easier. We made it easier. Together. They finished their cake slowly, watching the city move outside the fogged windows. When they left, snow was starting to fall. The first of the season. Fat flakes turning Providence into the postcard Yasmin remembered from last year. But this time, she wasn't alone. Ethan walked beside her, their hands linked, their future uncertain, but theirs. Same time next week? He asked. Same time next week, she agreed. And the week after. And the week after that. Sounds like a plan. They walked home through the snow, two people who'd survived by becoming visible, by refusing to disappear, by choosing each other and themselves in a world that demanded they choose survival over life. Yasmin Carter had forgotten her 28th birthday and worked anyway. On her 29th, she remembered. And she celebrated. And she knew, bone deep and certain, that she would never forget again. Because she mattered. Because she was seen. Because love, real, reciprocal, chosen love, was the most dangerous act of resistance in a system built to make people invisible. And she was done disappearing. If this story reminded you that existing is already resistance, that being seen is an act of courage, and that love can be found in yellow Post-its and shared cake, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because everyone deserves a witness. Everyone deserves to be remembered. And stories like these, they're how we remind each other that we matter.